When I stepped through the front door, the first thing I saw was two strangers sitting in my kitchen. One of them, though, wasn't really a stranger. He was the guy my wife had been sleeping with behind my back. He stared me dead in the eyes and said, "She's mine now. Play nice, and maybe we'll leave you a scrap of what you built when we're done." And then Brooke, my wife, chimed in, her voice dripping with contempt. "A real man would never let me slip away. That's why I found someone who actually knows what I'm worth." Those were the last words either of them managed before my fist did the talking, shattering the smugness right off his face and sending a crack through his jaw. The sickening sound of my knuckles connecting with his skin didn't bring any satisfaction. Not even close. I wasn't thinking straight. Honestly, nobody would be, not when your whole world collapses under the weight of betrayal, and the woman you gave 8 years of your life to spits right in your face. Her name's Brooke. Mine's Dylan Walker. And the slick-looking clown she dragged into my kitchen like a prize? Lester Price. Perfect hair, cocky smirk, expensive jacket. The type who thinks life's just one big movie, and every married woman's just another trophy waiting to be stolen. He hit the floor hard, blood pouring from his mouth, staining the white tile I used to be proud of. And Brooke? She didn't even blink. No scream. No flinch. No shame. She just crossed her arms, tilted her head like she was bored, like she'd played this scene over in her mind 100 times already. A slow smirk tugged at her lips. "Wow," she sneered. "You really are pathetic." I could feel my fists tightening again, ready for round 2, but I held myself back. Not for him, for me. Because honestly, I still didn't know what the hell was happening. My hands were trembling. My voice cracked as I croaked out, "Who the hell is this?" Lester wiped the blood off his chin, stood up like he owned my house, and started running his mouth. "You built an empire, Dylan. Real estate, rentals, 6 figures rolling in every month," he said. "But while you were busy playing mogul, your wife was starving for something you don't even know how to give." Brooke brushed past me like I wasn't even there. No glance, no sorry, grabbed a glass of wine off the counter and settled in next to him, like they were the hosts and I was the uninvited guest. "He gave me attention," she said, like it was some priceless gift I'd refused her. "He listens. He doesn't come home late reeking of contracts and boardrooms. He actually makes me feel like a woman." That's when it really hit me, not just that she had cheated, but that it had been going on for a long damn time. The subtle changes started clicking into place. The new perfume, the way she always kept her phone tilted away, the so-called girls' weekends that came back short a few pieces of lingerie. This wasn't a slip-up. It was a full-blown operation. "You used me," I muttered, my throat dry and raw. She laughed. Actually laughed. "No, sweetheart," she said, smirking. "I outgrew you." I saw red. The only thing that kept me from wrecking that kitchen, in them, was the little security camera blinking over the fridge. My camera. I could practically feel the red recording light burning into my skin, catching every second. That camera, that damn camera, probably saved me from myself, from a jail cell, from becoming exactly the monster they already painted me to be. So instead of snapping, I took a step back. I looked at them. Lester, standing there with his bruised face. Brooke, draped in the silk robe I bought her last Christmas. I turned and walked upstairs, not because I was scared, but because I needed something first. The file. See, I might have been blind to the affair for a while, but I wasn't a fool. I'd felt something off for months, gnawing at my gut. So I hired a private investigator, Robert. Ex-military, no games, no bull. He delivered the goods, photos, addresses, timestamps, even audio recordings. While Brooke thought I was off closing a deal in Houston, I was actually sitting in a hotel room, watching her step into a penthouse with Lester on my phone screen. I came back downstairs. Brooke barely glanced up from her wine. "Leaving?" she smirked, as if daring me. I didn't say a word. Just tossed the thick manila folder onto the counter. Photos spilled out everywhere. Her bent over a balcony. Lester behind her, shirtless, grinning. A hotel bill with her signature scribbled across it. An audio clip started playing on loop. "He's clueless, Lester. Dylan would never suspect a thing." The whole kitchen went dead silent. Brooke's face twisted, but not with guilt. With rage. "You were spying on me," she screamed. "You were foo asterisk asterisk ing him." I shot back, my voice exploding before I could stop it. Lester stepped in like he was some kind of hero. "She chose me," he said, chest puffed out. "That's all there is to it. That was the final crack. I turned, walked toward the front door, and paused. "You two want this house?" I said, yanking the door wide open. "Keep it. I'll be back tomorrow with lawyers." But before I left, I made sure to burn one thing into Brooke's mind. I looked her dead in the eyes. "You didn't upgrade," I said, voice low and steady. "You downgraded. And when he cheats on you, and trust me, he will, I hope you remember this moment." The moment she chose a clown over a king, I knew I had to walk away. Not because I was broken. No, because I was just getting started. Looking back now, the warning signs were flashing bright red the whole time. I just didn't want to see them. That's the trap when you love someone too much. You start lying to yourself. You convince yourself that the obvious lies are just little misunderstandings. That the growing distance is just because of stress. That the cold, empty stares are nothing more than bad moods she'll snap out of. The first time I really noticed something was wrong was about 6 months ago. Brooke came home late from what she called a girls' spa retreat. But she smelled like a man's cologne. When I asked her about it, she just rolled her eyes and snapped. "Oh, please, Dylan, the masseur was a guy. He hugged everyone goodbye, that's all." I laughed it off. Trusted her like a damn fool. But things only got worse from there. She started guarding her phone like it was a briefcase full of nuclear launch codes. She even slept with it shoved under her pillow. One time, I just happened to walk by while she was texting, and she jumped like a cat caught stealing food off the counter. "Work stuff," she mumbled, and that was the end of the conversation. I told myself I was just being paranoid. That maybe she was distant because of her workload, or maybe we just needed a vacation to reconnect. Hell, I even booked a trip to Aspen. 2 days before we were supposed to leave, she canceled. Said there was some big emergency at work. The truth? She was in Miami with him. But the moment that really flipped the switch for me came on a random Wednesday afternoon. She didn't know I was home early. I walked through the door and heard her laughing on the phone. Not just laughing, giggling, the way she used to giggle with me when we first fell in love. That sound used to be mine. Now it belonged to someone else. I stayed out of sight, hidden just around the corner. I told him I'm at the gym, she whispered into the phone, her voice sweet and sneaky. No, he still has no idea. Honestly, I don't even feel bad anymore. He's just boring now. Like, he's sweet and all, but I need more than just being provided for, you know? Hearing those words, it felt like my throat closed up. My ears started ringing. I stood there frozen, trying to wrap my head around what I just heard. But I didn't storm in there. Something inside me needed proof. Cold, undeniable evidence. So I waited. And I watched. That's when I really started paying attention. I noticed how often she picked fights with me over absolutely nothing. How she'd say I didn't look at her the way I used to, or that I was becoming emotionally distant. It was textbook. She was already halfway out the door, just looking for reasons to pin the blame on me when she left. That's when I called Robert, the private investigator. Quiet guy. Ex-military. Didn't waste time with small talk. 2 days after I hired him, Robert texted me. "You're going to want to see this in person." We met up, and he showed me the photos. Photos that made my stomach turn. Brooke, standing on a hotel balcony in downtown LA, wearing nothing but lingerie, Lester's arms wrapped tight around her waist. Another shot of them at dinner, her hand sliding up his leg under the table, grinning like a lovesick teenager. I asked Robert how long it had been going on. He shrugged and said his best guess was at least 3 months, probably even longer. The worst part? I recognized the damn restaurant. It was the same place where I got down on one knee and proposed to her. They were desecrating my memories. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there in the living room, staring at those photos, feeling like my whole life had been gutted. I thought about everything we'd built, the apartment I remodeled with my own 2 hands, the nights I worked late so she could chase her dream career. I remembered holding her when her father passed, how she sobbed into my chest and whispered, "You're all I have left." And now? Now she was throwing herself at another man like none of it ever meant a damn thing. I didn't cry. I was too angry for tears. Instead, I made a plan. The next morning, I left a note on the kitchen table. Meeting at 3 p.m. Big investment opportunity. Don't be late. It was bait. I made damn sure I'd be the one walking through that front door at 2:45 sharp. And sure enough, there they were already inside, sipping wine like they owned the place. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was war. I hadn't slept the night before, couldn't sleep. Every time I shut my eyes, all I could see was Brooke's face, not the woman I married, but the cold, scheming stranger I'd seen in those photos. So when I stepped into my own kitchen and saw her perched at the island with Lester, acting like they'd already moved in. Something inside me snapped loose. The guy had his filthy feet up on my kitchen counter, drinking wine out of my glass. And Brooke. She was wearing the silk robe I gave her on our 5th anniversary, draped around her like some sick joke. "You're early," she said without even bothering to look up. Was hoping to finish the bottle before the fireworks started. Lester let out a little chuckle beside her, and that was it. The last crack in my patience snapped. I swung, landing a clean shot that shattered his jaw in one hit. The wine bottle tipped over, spilling deep red across the marble countertop, looking for all the world like fresh blood. Brooke didn't scream. She didn't even flinch. She just stared at me, her eyes filled with disgust, like I was the one who had broken our vows, not her. "Real classy, Dylan," she sneered. "That temper of yours? That's why I left you. I'm still your husband," I growled through gritted teeth. "Not anymore," she said coldly, crossing her legs like she was getting comfortable. "You stopped being my husband the day you turned into a walking calendar, meetings, conference calls, deadlines. You weren't married to me, Dylan. You were married to your damn company." I stood there, breathing heavy, my fists still trembling from the punch I'd thrown, and the ones I was holding back. "So that's your excuse?" I snapped. "You went behind my back. You slept with him in our own bed?" Instead of guilt, her eyes lit up, not with shame, but with something worse. Pride. "Lester makes me feel things you haven't in years," she said, her voice sharp. "He touches me like I'm a woman, not some obligation you have to check off a list." I damn near lost it again. But somehow, I stayed on my feet. I stayed silent, biting down the rage that was clawing up my throat. "You could have told me," I said, voice low. "You could have said something. We could have worked through it." She actually laughed, a short, cold sound that made my skin crawl. "I didn't need your quick-fix solutions, Dylan," she snapped. "I needed a man who actually knew how to handle a woman like me." Lester, holding his busted jaw, finally opened his mouth. "You're out, Dylan," he said, trying to sound tough through the swelling. "She's mine now. Just sign whatever papers she gives you and walk away. Otherwise, things are gonna get ugly." I stepped closer, got right in his face. "You think I'm scared of you?" I said, voice steady. "You think you're the first little boy to waltz into my castle thinking he can play king? I built this life. I bled for it. You're nothing but a speed bump." Even through the pain, he gave me that same cocky smirk. "I don't think," he said. "I know. Because she's done pretending you matter." Then Brooke leaned in, her voice soft and cutting, whispering right into my ear. "A real man would never let me slip away," she said. "That's why I found someone who knows my worth." That line, that one line, was the final switch. But I didn't yell. I didn't punch another hole in the wall. I didn't even say a word. I just turned around and started walking away. Because real power? It isn't throwing a tantrum. It isn't leaving blood on the floor. Real power is control. Before I stepped through the door, though, I turned back one last time. "You two really think this is love?" I said, my voice calm. "Give it some time. He'll get bored. You'll start to nag. And when that day comes, when the shine wears off, I want you to remember this moment." I paused, staring them both down. "The moment you torched everything you had for a cheap thrill." Then I walked out into the night. My fists were still clenched. My heart felt numb. My mind was racing in 1,000 directions at once. I didn't just lose a wife that night. I lost an illusion. And illusions don't deserve grief. They deserve justice. The air outside hit colder than it should have. Maybe it was the adrenaline. Maybe it was just the crash after the storm. I sat in my car with the engine off, just trying to breathe, trying to keep myself grounded. My hands were still trembling from the punch. My head was still buzzing with her words. "She's mine now. He touches me like I matter. A real man would never let me slip away." Each sentence slammed into my chest like a gunshot. I didn't cry. Couldn't cry. What I felt went way deeper than sadness. It was a full-blown storm. Betrayal, humiliation, rage, all tangled into a knot I couldn't begin to untie. This wasn't just the end of a marriage. This was the funeral of a future I'd spent my whole damn life building. I gave her everything, and she spat it all back in my face. I drove for hours. No music. No phone calls. Just the hum of the tires against the road and the chaos clawing through my mind. I passed the little cafe she used to drag me to on Sunday mornings, back when things were good. I drove past the park where we used to walk hand in hand, before life turned into late nights and cold dinners. Even the good memories felt poison now. Around 2 in the morning, I found myself sitting in the parking lot of a 24-hour gym. That place had been my escape for years, my safe harbor. I walked inside, gave a small nod to the night crew, and went straight to work, lifting like I was trying to rip the anger out of my own muscles. Rep after rep, set after set, until every part of me burned. And I welcomed it. Pain was honest. Pain didn't lie to you like people do. By the time I stumbled back out, the sun was starting to rise. I sat on the edge of my trunk, drenched in sweat, breathing hard. That's when my phone buzzed. A message from her. Brooke, we need to talk. Don't do anything stupid. Just sign the documents and let's move on. That was the message she sent. No apology. No explanation. No ounce of regret. Just cold, flat instructions, like I was a task she needed to cross off her list. I stared at her message for a solid minute, feeling nothing but emptiness. Then I deleted it without replying. When I finally made it back to my condo, the one I'd kept solely in my name long before I ever said, I do, I collapsed onto the couch and stared up at the ceiling. The silence was overwhelming. No sound of wine glasses clinking. No click of heels across the floor. No fake apologies floating through the air. And that's when it finally hit me. I didn't miss her. I missed the woman I thought she was. The girl I met that night at a rooftop party. The one who made me laugh until I couldn't breathe. The one who kissed me like the world was ending. That woman didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never really did. A knock at the door snapped me out of my spiral. It was Robert, my PI. He didn't say a word, just handed me a thick envelope. Inside were more photos. Different times. Different places. Brooke and Lester at a car dealership. Lester signing paperwork under her name. Brooke slipping him a manila envelope. I frowned. What's all this? I asked. Robert pulled out his phone and tapped a few times. I got curious after you told me how confident that punk was acting, he said. Turns out, Lester's got a record. Fraud. Identity theft. Money laundering. And your wife? She's transferring jointly owned assets into an LLC registered under his name. My blood turned ice. They weren't just sleeping together. They were robbing me blind. I felt something dark stir inside me, some cold, sharp piece of myself that I hadn't touched in years. I looked Robert square in the eye. You can prove all of this? I asked. He gave one solid nod. Good, I said, standing tall for the first time in what felt like days. Because now it wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It was about revenge. Revenge isn't something you serve hot and reckless. It's best served cold, ice cold, calculated, devastating. And that's exactly what I intended to deliver. Brooke and Lester thought they were the clever ones, thought I'd just roll over, sign the divorce papers, and hand them half of everything I'd built from nothing. But they didn't understand the man they were messing with. They forgot who built the empire they were trying to steal. First thing I did was call my lawyer, Amanda Monroe. She's a shark in heels, no nonsense, all teeth. I didn't give her the full rundown, just told her I suspected fraud and needed to lock down every asset before anyone got greedy. Within 2 hours, Amanda had temporary holds slapped on all shared accounts and properties, pending a full investigation. Don't worry, she said, her voice calm but lethal. They won't know until it's too late. Exactly what I needed. While Amanda handled the legal side, I started working on something a little more personal. Brooke had always been obsessed with her birthday. She loved the attention, the big parties, the endless photo shoots, the flood of fake admiration on social media. This year, she'd planned a huge rooftop bash, family, friends, business associates, the whole 9 yards. What she didn't know, I had been quietly added to the guest list. Half the people there still had no idea what she'd done, and I intended to make sure they found out in a way none of them would ever forget. Thanks to Robert, I already had everything I needed. Photos, videos, financial documents, even audio recordings from a tiny mic he planted in Lester's car. Turns out, Lester wasn't just cocky, he was sloppy. He bragged about their scam out loud, laughed about how easy it was to fool me, even talked about forging Brooke's signature on real estate deals. That's when the idea hit me, and it was downright wicked. I hired a private videographer, under the pretense of putting together a surprise birthday tribute from the loving husband. I told him I'd send over all the files he needed to edit into a short, touching video. What he didn't know was, it wasn't going to be a tribute. It was going to be a public execution. The day of the party rolled around, and I kept a low profile. Brooke shot me a quick text, probably out of habit more than anything else. You're not coming, right? Let's not make it awkward. I didn't answer. She probably thought I was licking my wounds, hiding out somewhere, nursing my bruised ego. She had no clue I was already 5 steps ahead. When the sun dipped below the skyline, the rooftop came alive, twinkling lights, flowing champagne, music bouncing off the glass towers around them. Everyone was dressed to kill. And there was Brooke, center of attention, glowing in a tight crimson dress that clung to every curve like it was painted on. Lester stood beside her, wearing that smug, greasy grin, like a man who thought he'd won the jackpot. Right after they cut the cake, the videographer wheeled out the projector and screen. Brooke clapped her hands in delight, practically bouncing on her heels. A surprise, she squealed, laughing. Dylan must have sent me something cheesy. Maybe he's finally growing up. She had no idea. No clue what was about to hit her. The video started innocently enough, old photos flashing across the big screen. Our wedding. Vacations. Laughing together like we had the whole world at our feet. Soft music played in the background, and for a second, I saw her eyes mist over. Lester chuckled beside her, smug as ever. But then the footage shifted, and the whole night flipped on its head. Photos of her and Lester kissing in hotel rooms, wrapped around each other like animals. Then a recording played, her voice crackling through the speakers. He's clueless, Lester. Dylan would never suspect a thing. Gasps echoed across the rooftop. Chairs scraped. People started whispering, standing up, craning their necks to see. And then came the real gut punch. Robert's footage rolled, audio of Lester laughing, boasting. She's gonna sign over the duplex next. Once that's in my name, I'll cut her loose. I watched from a nearby building, drink in hand, savoring every second. Brooke's face drained of all color. Lester looked like he'd seen a ghost. And then, the final blow flashed across the screen, bold, brutal text. Happy birthday, Brooke. Here's what you mean to the man you chose. Lawyers will be in touch. Silence gripped the rooftop for a heartbeat. Then chaos exploded. Brooke stormed off, heels clicking furiously across the rooftop. She screamed at Lester, fury etched across her face. He tried to grab her arm to calm her down, but she slapped him so hard heads turned. Phones came out. People started recording. Their perfect little fantasy was crumbling right there in front of everyone they knew, family, friends, business partners. And me? I just stood in the shadows, sipping my drink, smiling like the devil himself. That night, for the first time in months, I slept like a baby. The next morning, the fallout spread like wildfire. Local social pages blew up with headlines. Birthday bash gone wrong. Real estate power couple implodes on camera. The video went viral in our circle within hours. Mutual friends ghosted her. Her sister even texted me. I'm sorry, Dylan. I had no idea it was that bad. Even her mother, the same woman who once sneered that I wasn't good enough for Brooke, called me personally to apologize. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I knew Brooke too well. I knew she'd come crawling back, not because she regretted what she did, but because she was terrified of losing everything. And like clockwork, 2 days later, she showed up at my door. No makeup, baggy sweats, hair yanked back into a messy bun, trying to look vulnerable, trying to play the part of the girl I used to love. Can we talk? She asked, clutching her purse like it was her last lifeline. I swung the door wide open and stepped aside. You've got 5 minutes, I said flatly. She walked in like she still owned the place, her eyes darting around, taking it all in, the life she set on fire. She perched on the couch, folded her hands neatly in her lap, like she'd rehearsed it a dozen times. Dylan. I messed up, she started. I said nothing. I got caught up in something stupid, she continued. Lester, he manipulated me. He said you didn't love me anymore, that you were too cold, too distant. And I believed him because I was lonely. She paused, hoping I'd jump in. I didn't. She kept going, desperate to fill the silence. You were always working, Dylan. I needed more. I needed to feel alive. I raised an eyebrow. Alive? I said. You found life screwing in hotel rooms and signing away my properties? Her mouth opened, then snapped shut again. She switched tactics, fast. Dylan, we were partners. I helped you build this life. I deserve something. I gave you my best years. My blood boiled under my skin, but I kept my voice cool. Your best years. I repeated. You mean the years you spent lying to my face? Blowing my money on another man? Mocking me behind my back? People make mistakes, she said quietly, eyes shimmering with fake sadness. Don't throw everything away. I stepped closer, slow and deliberate. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, I said. A mistake is saying something cruel during a fight. What you did wasn't a mistake, it was betrayal. It was a full-blown scheme. And now that your fantasy blew up in your face, You're back here hoping I'll pick up the pieces for you." Tears welled up in her eyes, but it wasn't sorrow I saw. It was fear. Fear of losing. Fear of starting over without my name, my money, my reputation to prop her up. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "No," I said, my voice like steel. "You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you lost." She jumped to her feet, the fake tears drying up instantly. Her eyes turned cold. "You think you've won?" she hissed. "You think humiliating me at my birthday makes you some kind of hero?" "I don't need to be a hero," I said calmly. "I just need you gone." She stared at me for a long second, pure venom in her gaze. "You'll regret this," she spat. "I already regret ever meeting you," I said without blinking. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. And just like that, whatever ember of feeling I had left for her was snuffed out completely. But even as she disappeared down the hall, I knew it wasn't truly over. Women like Brooke don't fade away quietly. She wasn't going to let this go without another round. She still thought she could spin it, charm someone new, rewrite the narrative. But what she didn't know, I still had one final card left to play. I had one last move to make, the one that would bury her reputation for good. Because Lester wasn't just some small-time scammer. He was already on the Fed's radar, under investigation for financial crimes. And Brooke? She was tied to him on paper, signing off on documents, handing him envelopes. All of it caught on record. And I had everything. The next move? That was mine to make. The next morning, I met up with Amanda, my lawyer, at her downtown office. She poured 2 cups of black coffee, slid one across the desk to me, and didn't waste any time. "Dylan," she said, "I've already contacted the feds. Lester's been flagged by financial crimes for months. And you? You're not just a victim anymore. You're a key witness. And your wife? She's complicit." My jaw tightened until it ached. "Can they both go down?" I asked, my voice low. Amanda gave me a slow, dangerous smile. "With the files Robert pulled together, we won't even need a trial to wreck them. They'll cut a deal before the headlines destroy whatever's left of their lives." I leaned back in the chair and took a breath, the first real breath I'd taken in what felt like weeks. It wasn't satisfaction exactly. It was deeper than that, closure with teeth. Because Brooke didn't just cheat on me. She tried to gut me financially and walk away smiling. But now the walls were closing in fast. By noon that same day, federal agents had a warrant for Lester's laptop and phone. Robert had been keeping tabs on them. Found out they were holed up in a short-term rental in Lutz. The knock came right at 1:17 p.m. Federal agents, gloves on, no warning shots. Lester got arrested right there in front of Brooke, shirtless, babbling about needing to make a phone call. The irony? I had made the call days ago. But the image that stayed with me, the one that's burned into my memory, was Brooke, standing there in the doorway, wrapped in that same red robe she wore the night of her birthday party. Watching them cuff her lover. She asked one thing. "Wait, what's this about?" The agents turned toward her, all business. "You're being detained as part of an ongoing financial fraud investigation." She laughed at first, a high, brittle sound. No. This is a mistake," she said. "I didn't do anything." But then they showed her the documents. 3 forged property transfers. Her signature on every single one. Her face turned ghost white. That perfect mask of arrogance and lies finally cracked. She turned and locked eyes with the surveillance camera posted above the door, and in that second, she realized what I'd done. Game over. That night, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Friends, family, business partners, even people I hadn't talked to in years reached out. Everyone had seen the news. Local couple tied to fraud ring, federal case pending. Her mugshot was everywhere, online, in newspapers, whispered about over morning coffee. And me? I sat out on my balcony, whiskey in hand, the city lights sprawling out beneath me, and watched the empire she tried to steal burn down to ash. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten, as if that somehow made it more sincere. "Dylan," it started. "I don't know what's left to say. I made mistakes. Huge ones. But you didn't have to ruin me like this. I was scared. I was stupid. I was selfish. Lester promised me everything, but now I see he was just using me. Maybe we both were. I'm not a good person. I'll probably never be able to explain it right. I'm sorry. Not out of hate. Out of necessity. Some things need to be burned to make sure they never come back." I read the whole thing once, then tossed it straight into the trash. I never replied. Never visited her. Last I heard, she was trying to negotiate a plea deal. Lester, in true coward fashion, was flipping on bigger names, hoping to cut himself a better deal. Pathetic. And me? I moved into a new place. Sleek. Minimalist. No red ropes. No broken promises hanging in the air. Just peace. Although, I did keep one thing from my old life, one photo. A shot of me, standing alone at the Aspen chalet we never got around to visiting together. I didn't keep it because of her. I kept it as a reminder. I survived. I rose higher. Without her. But just when I thought she was finally out of my life for good. She came back. It was almost 6 months after everything had blown apart. 6 months of silence. 6 months of rebuilding. My life had gotten quiet. Clean. And then she showed up again. My business was back on solid ground, stronger than it had ever been. I had cut out every toxic thread Brooke ever wove into it, burned every bridge that needed burning. I had just come back from a weekend trip to Clearwater, my first real vacation in years, when I saw it. A letter. No return address. Just my name, written in a handwriting I recognized all too well. For a second, I thought about tossing it straight into the shredder without even opening it. But something stopped me. Some stubborn part of me wanted to see what kind of game she thought she could still play. Inside was a single page. Dylan, it read, I know I don't deserve your attention, but I need one last thing. Please just hear me out. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a meeting. 1 hour. In person. No tricks. No cameras. Just the truth. Brooke. There was an address listed, a little cafe in Hudson. Neutral ground. I sat there staring at the note, weighing it in my hands like it might explode. She had nothing left to take from me, not legally, not financially, not emotionally. But curiosity? That was the one thing she still held over me. I had to know what was left of her. Maybe deep down, I just wanted to see her broken, to make sure the fall had been real. So I went. The cafe was small and quiet, soft jazz playing low in the background. A few people were scattered around, sipping lattes and pretending to read. I spotted her right away, sitting by the window, hands wrapped around a coffee mug like it was the only thing keeping her steady. She didn't look like the woman I once knew. No makeup, hair tied back carelessly. Eyes hollow, not from lack of sleep, but from life crashing down around her. The confidence, the seduction, the venom, it was all gone. Dylan, she said softly as I slid into the seat across from her. Make it quick, I said, leaning back, arms crossed, watching her like she was a stranger. She nodded, slow and nervous, then reached into her purse and pulled something out. Something that knocked the air right out of me. A positive pregnancy test. I stared at it, frozen. Silence stretched between us until her voice, small and shaking, broke through. It's yours. My brain couldn't process it at first. I just blinked, staring, waiting for the punchline, for her to crack that evil little smile and reveal whatever game she was playing. But her eyes, they weren't scheming. They were terrified. I found out after everything happened, she said, barely above a whisper. I was planning to disappear, to start fresh somewhere. Then this happened. I don't want money, she added quickly. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just thought, you deserve to know. I sat there, locked in place, every instinct in me screaming don't trust her. This was Brooke, the woman who lied, cheated, schemed her way through my life. But this wasn't part of any plan I knew. How do I even know it's mine? I asked coldly. Her lips trembled. We weren't intimate after you found out about Lester, she said. You remember that. It had to be from before, just before everything fell apart. You expect me to believe you now? I asked, my voice sharp and hard. She shook her head. No, she whispered. I don't expect anything. I just couldn't live with not telling you. I exhaled slowly, dragging air into lungs that felt too full of stone. I waited for anger, for rage, for something. But all I felt was a heavy, numb confusion, a cold weight pressing down on my chest. What do you want from me? I asked, voice flat. Nothing, she said immediately. I'll raise it alone if I have to. I know I don't have the right to ask you for anything. I stood up, slow and steady. You're right, I said. You don't. I pulled a card from my wallet, Amanda's card, and dropped it onto the table. My lawyer's number. Tell her everything. She'll arrange a test. If it's mine, I'll do what's right. Not for you. For the child. I leaned in closer, my voice dropping low. But hear me, Brooke, you don't get a second act in my story. You're a chapter that ended in fire. Then I turned and walked out. No second glance. No hesitation. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I wasn't looking back. Not at her. Not at what we used to be, only forward, into whatever the hell was waiting for me next.